And if you're not familiar with Fuel, definitely check it out. It's www.myfuel.io, where you've got access to now about 50 instructors, world-class instructors, New York Times bestsellers, TEDx, Hall of Famers, things like that. And we've now also introduced, a number of us have AI bots, so you can actually interact with us 24/7 all over the world. The bots are loaded with our body of work. So in my case, my AI bot has got about 40 years of hundreds of interviews, the books I've written, hundreds of podcasts, YouTube clips, things like that. It's very impressive. So check out the AI bots and check out the courses that we offer. So Fearless is all about helping people confront fear and anxiety and stress. And in today's world, with all the things that are changing and the uncertainty, the idea here is to help you get through that. Today's guest is a guy that's just awesome. I've known Mark Tabit for over 40 years. In fact, we went to Notre Dame together. Mark's had an incredibly successful career in the financial services sector and wealth management and real estate. But Mark, like all of us, has had some real challenges in life and some real adversity, and very different than my guest last week, Renee Godefroy, who grew up with nothing in Haiti and no water, no electricity, and made a global name for himself on the speaking platform. Mark came from a different background, but he's going to reveal some of the things that prepared him for a devastating situation just over a year ago. So with that, let me welcome Mark Tabit. Mark, it's great to have you here and good to see you again, buddy.
John, as always, great seeing you, and
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for inviting me on. I'm a big fan of yours.
All right. Well, good. And so, Mark, I want to give you a center stage today and just to hear your words of wisdom. I know there are a couple of takeaways. Let's just get right to that that I want the audience to take with them and remember and use to help guide them. And one takeaway is, you make the comment, it's all about people and surrounding yourself with good people. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And you also said you had a little phrase, and we'll talk about this one too, dig a hole. So what in the world does dig a hole mean? We'll get to that as well. But let's go right to a little over a year ago, January of 2025. And I'll give the audience just a hint here. Mark had a beautiful home in the Palisades, Pacific Palisades. If you know anything about what happened a little of January of 2025 in the Palisades, the place literally went up in flames. So, Mark, just give us an idea what that was like, if you will.
Well, I mean, as you can imagine, first of all, Pacific Palisades is one of the most beautiful towns in the world. And we were fortunate enough to live there 30 years. And my wife and my 4 children, 2 grandchildren, gathered there on very special days, from Easter to Thanksgiving, and memories that we'll always have. But it was our gathering spot. It was our home. And as you know, the fire broke out. Winds were high. And at the same time, we were in the center of town, our home. So we could walk to the village, things like that. So we had a really great location. And we have a pool filled with water. We had a fire hydrant at the end of our driveway. And the fire station was 2 blocks away. And a big friggin' reservoir on top of the mountain. So we felt like we're in good shape. We'll evacuate. We went to our son's house, and we proceeded to watch David Muir show our house and our street burned to the ground in ashes. And the next day, 2 of my sons and I hiked up the mountain to Pacific Palisades, walked through the town. And there were thousands of homes down. At the same time, there were a few homes standing. The downtown area was standing. Um, I took photos, friends' homes that were standing. Hey, I'm up here, and uh, it looks horrible, but your house has made it. We got to our house, and when we got there, everything had collapsed into the basement, and there were a few flickering flames, if you will, like candles. Um, and I was somewhat just just in a daze because I was just looking at everything and started thinking about the memories, started thinking about all those times, whether it was Christmas or Easter, beer pong, or you know, football arguments, who's better, who's not, all those things that happen. And it was all under that roof. And uh, house in back of us exploded. It was still standing, and it exploded. And my son said, "Dad, we got to get out of here." And by the way, I mean, my sons are 35 and 40, so yeah, they're adult men. And but anyway, we left. We started walking back. It was a 2 mile, probably 2 miles. But anyway, there were no fire trucks around. There was nothing around. It was somewhat eerie, and there were hundreds of fire trucks on the beach. And most people talk about January 7th. I talk about January 8th because the church was standing, the bank was standing, everything was standing in this area. Chase Bank is right in the center of town, and we get back. We're watching the news, and um, they're doing a television shoot in front of the bank, and the bank's burning. And it was a lack of leadership. But the top leader, our governor and our mayor, were doing a photo shoot, a live shoot. And you would think, well, can't somebody call a fire truck down there and get them up? But it was where systems went unchecked. And it's where that was a bad day of leadership in terms of elected leaders. And I'm not trying to make a political statement, but what we also got out of this were local leaders, people that stepped up. Um, some businessmen stepped up. Community council type people stepped up. Reporters, a person that owns a newspaper, stepped up. A guy that writes articles stepped up. It's amazing how all these folks came together. In the same way with people that came together to also help us, we all need help. And out here, um, out here, I'm fortunate, we're fortunate, but out here it's a barbell. Okay. If you imagine a set of weights, and you got a barbell, you got the elderly over here who have owned their home for 50 years, and that was their bank. That was everything was there. And then you got the young people, friends of my sons and daughters, 35 to 45 years old, moving into homes, mortgage to the hilt, and both sets lost everything. Fortunately, we've rebounded. Fortunately, I got through the insurance piece of things, which has been bad for people out here. So, we look at it and I say, okay, back to your people comment. I don't think we would have gotten through, or I certainly wouldn't, uh, if we didn't rely on people. And yeah, we're talking about people that sent us socks and underwear. We have, you know, as a gift, one of the most touching gifts I ever received was from my aunt, who's 2 years older than me, um, living in West Virginia. She inherited my grandmother's china, and she packed it up and drove it to me. So it's things like that where you see the humanity of people during a bad situation. And I can give you 100 more great stories like that of good people
Yeah, well, you mentioned there a lot of people in the community stepped up. You use the word stepped up.
stepped up.
Yeah, well, I remember those words well because it's the title of one of my books, Stepping Up. But you stepped up, Mark. It was, you talked about other people, but you stepped up and you became a voice for people, like you just said, who essentially lost everything. What I want to do now is I want you to talk a little bit about growing up and what helped prepare you for the success and the character that you have and the integrity that you have, the leadership that you have. Well, what kind of things helped shape you uh, to get where you are today? And any kind of adversity you've had, because I know your story pretty well, but any kind of adversity you faced and any fear or anxiety you may have felt, uh, how'd you get through that? Like what'd you do?
Well, you know, I had a pretty good life there. I was eighth grade. I was king of the class, basketball, football, all those great things. And my I was going from grade school to high school, and my mom says, "Let's take a little vacation, me, you, and your sister." And so we got in the car. We drove to Kentucky, went to see her sister, and we're there for a few days. And we had dinner. And after dinner, just like most of the kids, we went out, we played kick the can and all that. And I'm walking back, and there's an ambulance in the driveway, and it had just started taking off. And I got to the house, and my mother had an aneurysm. And, on vacation, she 3 weeks later passed, and my world changed. Um, I was raised by five great people: my grandmother, my aunt, two uncles, and of course my father. And but it was a situation where um, yeah, that was a major adversity, and I'll get to dig a hole in a second. But um, I look back, and because of your asking me to do this, I haven't shared this with maybe my kids, but on Sundays we went to church, being raised by basically three men. We went to church. We would come back, have a nice family dinner with my aunt and grandmother and sister, and 2 o'clock afternoon, we spent our Sunday afternoons going through lists of real estate. And we were in the car together. And it's kind of amazing now that, you got me thinking about this. My two uncles owned a furniture store. One was a natural salesman, and one was a pretty sticky CPA accountant. Okay. He didn't budge on numbers. Okay. And then I had my father, who was a local leader in town, but also a lawyer and put together contracts. So I was getting a master class, not knowing I was getting a master class weekly at the dinner table. And every now and then on Wednesday afternoon, Well, almost every Wednesday, my uncle would come to my high school and check me out because I had a doctor's appointment. But that was also the day that they did the delinquent land sale. So I got an education in real estate. Um, and we would be driving down the road. My uncle, that was an accountant, said, "Well, what do you think about this deal?" And I would say, "That sounds good to me." And he goes, "Well, it's the worst deal ever. Did you run the numbers?" So, at age 14, 15, I had cap rates and square footage calculations and what happens if the cost of construction goes up by 10%. And lo and behold, when I got to college, I had a pretty good basis of these three men, my father negotiating, my father being a referee between my two uncles. Uh, but the one uncle, Bob, um, he taught me not to be afraid. And he would knock on the door of the person, don't disturb my uncle would disturb the person, said, "Hey, I'm interested in your property." And, and he would just begin a conversation and they would like him. And sure enough, they would come to some agreement. My Uncle Bill would never like the agreement. He was like, it was he was the number guy. Well, my dad put it together. And, my dad would say, "Hey, the best deal is when no one's happy, Bill." Yeah. So it was just an education. It was an education that didn't teach, uh, but it's in the book somewhere.
Yeah. Well, you reference your two uncles, and I know one of them's we're going to talk about digging a hole, but the other one, Uncle Bob. I mean, from the day I met you over 40 years ago, I just thought you are a natural salesman. I mean, you know how to put deals together like nobody I've ever met, and so it's kind of interesting to hear how your maybe your uncles and your father cultivated that in you. It's in you. I mean, we all have a natural gifts, and but it really takes somebody to help a person become more aware of it and
Yeah.
practice it. And so clearly, you've become aware of it. It's been cultivated well, and you've used it now to do all kinds of deals over the years.
Thank you.
Um, yeah. So now, what's this dig a hole thing all about? I want to.
Oh, my dad had sayings for a lot of things, and he was probably the most simple person I know, but at the same time was again a leader, a person that put things together, negotiate, and my uncle would have problems with uh, sometimes getting over something, and I would have issues, say, called in high school, minor issues, but whatever. My dad would just say, "Dig a hole." Now, most people don't know what the hell that means, but my dad would say, "Okay, look, I'm really tired of hearing about this. Um, you have a choice to sit here and wallow in your despair, or you can move on. And I'm going to suggest you move on. So what we're going to do, we're going to go in the backyard. You're going to write down your problem. You know, she said something mean to me and I can't get over it. I lost $5 in a deal. Whatever the thing is. Okay. We're going to dig a hole. You're going to put that little piece of paper, what the problem is. We're going to cover it up. We're going to have a funeral. Okay. We're going to say goodbye to that problem. And as life has progressed, you know, I've dug more holes. I mean, I'm digging holes every day, and I'll drive down.
Yeah.
I'm driving down one of these freeways in LA, and something's bothering me, and it'll pop in my brain. You know what? Dig a
Yeah.
hole, bury it, get it out of your brain, because there's so much good stuff out there, and good people out there. And, um, one of the things, Murphy, you brought up early was, surrounding yourself with people. Um, you know, because you asked me to be on here, I really, really never stopped and just started just reflecting. You helped me here reflect. Oh my God. Um, you know, I look back, I went to Holy Cross College and which was at Notre Dame. And I went there for a year and transferred in. But I had some of the most amazing men step up and help me. They were priests and brothers of Holy Cross. They happened to be my professors, you know, uh, chemistry, biology. These men, they took time out, um, wonderful people, and became friends for life. You know, another mentor in my life, and I with business. It's funny. I started dating Jill when I was a senior in college, and I met her dad. Most father-in-laws and son-in-laws, there's that first. Well, I mean, he was a businessman. He was loved sports, and you know, uh, we started a conversation. I don't know how we started, and I love stocks, and we had this. I will never forget. We had this first conversation, and I said, "What are you working on?" He goes, "Well, he tells me a little bit about what he's working on, and I I already knew I understood what he was working on. I mean, I
Mhm.
understood it because of being in that car with my uncles and dad, right?
Mhm.
And I was able to converse with him. And in a weird way, back to university, you know, I spent 3 great years with him. I talked to him more than I talked to Jill. I mean, we were friends.
Yeah.
He used to invite me to his Friday meeting with businessmen, and he exposed me to these different businessmen. And every Friday, and one Friday we're at waiting for him to show up for lunch, and the receptionist or the person at the restaurant says, uh, "Mr. Tabit, you have a phone call," and it was my wife, Jill, who was at the hospital and said, "I'm here. Dad died." Now, I had in that small period of time of my life, that compressed period of time that you're asking me, I had this adversity. Everybody, it just seemed like my mom, my father-in-law, these folks that were really instrumental. Um, so when the fire came, John, you know, I've already been punched. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Oh yeah.
And um, uh, and when when I had an opportunity, and I had a great opportunity shortly after that, to get on a television show. And I did a television show for 6 years in Chicago, and it was a once a week financial show. And my my business mentors, my wealth management people that worked at the corporation, um, you know what? They gave a young guy, pretty young guy, the chance to carry the water. And
Mhm.
um, they gave me the keys to Oak Brook, Illinois, to a very nice branch. We turned that, when I say we, it's the people. The people of that office are the reasons of our success. It wasn't me. Um, and we came out to California, and we were able to um, turn it into the number one complex in the country. And none of that would have happened None of it would have happened from the receptionist all the way up to the administration manager. They they believed in themselves and they believed in me. They believed in the people around them. And we would not have had that success if we weren't a team. And so, yeah, I think everybody has adversity. That's one thing. It's what you do when it comes up. You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
it's
Yeah, well,
what you do.
yeah, and one of the words, Mark, that comes to my mind as you tell your story is the word cultivation, cultivators. You had people cultivating you and bringing out the best in you. I think of it almost like, you're cultivating a garden. You're nurturing, you're bringing out the best. Your uncles, your father-in-law. So a question I'd ask our listeners is, uh, number one, who's cultivating you? And do they really have your best interests in mind? Do they see the potential in you that you might not even see yourself? Because a lot of people don't have those cultivators, and so they're not exactly getting the greatest advice in life. So I always say, if you want to be brilliant, surround yourself with brilliant people, which is why I'm such a fan of Fuel. You got some really bright people there. But the second question is, who are you cultivating? And that's probably an even more important question. So all of us, you cultivate your children, hopefully in the most positive way. Uh, you cultivate your employees. Mark, you talked about how important it was to work as a team, and it was a team effort, and the people did it. Um, well, they did it with your cultivation as well. I just have to say that you're very humble and everything, but you cultivated a very high performing team, and that's essential. So I think one of the most important takeaways today is just that. Who's cultivating you, and who are you cultivating? How are you making the world a better place? And adversity helps us grow wiser, right? And
It does.
prepare for that. And I think the other critical takeaway is to dig a hole to our audience. You got problems, you got stresses, you got worries, dig a hole, bury it and move on. There's nothing you can do about it except bury it and move forward. That's a huge theme. Um, and you've obviously done that very well, Mark. So I want to thank you again for being such a great guest and congratulate you on an incredible career. And give my best to Jill and the grown children now. Like I say, Mark and I go back a long way. But even the fact that you said, you graduated from Notre Dame, but you started at Holy Cross, and I know that was a bump in the road for you
That
too,
was a bump in the
because
road too.
you
Yeah,
know, you,
yeah.
but you know what? We pivot and we
He,
adjust. You get hit, you get up, you dust yourself off, dig a hole, and move forward. Uh,
I don't know how
eh,
much time we have now, but you just brought up something else, okay? And my kids, um, uh, I'm surprised. I've done so many changes in my life. I've changed careers. I've changed towns. We've done a lot of that. Then I was like, as I was thinking about your show here, I was thinking about my daughter. I mean, she had her CPA with Price Waterhouse, and she becomes a OBGYN. I have a son that was in Chicago that had one of the greatest corporate jobs and decides he's coming out here, picking up and coming back out to LA, and he's in restaurants. I have a son that had a banking corporate brokerage job, very comfortable, going to, and now he's a Bitcoin treasury advisor. Okay. And lastly, I have another son that had a great business and still has a great business. Um, and he said to me, it can be greater and it can be better for my clients. So he uproots that. And so I started thinking, I don't know if it's osmosis that they're making those changes, but yeah, the only thing constant is change. So
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, well, you're a change master, and I got to get you on my change mastery show. That's another podcast I offer. Um, yeah, and we are basically out of town time now, Mark. But again, I got to say thank you to you so much, not just for our friendship, but for joining us on the show and being so open and humble and wise, so giving people something to really think about and use to move forward in life with less fear, if you will, fear less. I've got a show coming up on Monday called Mindset Matters Through Fuel. So those of you who are interested in a little bit more on that, I know Mark could comment on this as well, because it's basically when the what and the why are very clear to you, the how will show up. And a lot of people never get on the road until they think they have to figure out how they're going to do whatever they're going to do. And I started my practice 38 years ago. The what was very important to me, what I wanted to do. The why was very important to me to help as many people in the world as possible. And the how continues to change essentially every day. How am I going to do that? But that takes fearlessness and confidence. And Mark, you've dusted yourself off so many times because you knew what you wanted for the most part. Sometimes that changes. You knew why it was important to you and to the world. It's not just about the selfish ego thing, but how can I help? And then the how, just the opportunities, the people, it shows up. And so anybody who's hesitating to make a change, to do something that they really want to do or dream about, let go of the how and it'll come. Just get on the road and pivot as you go. So Mindset Matters on Monday. Next week on Fearless, I've got Gary Garfield coming on board. And Gary was the president, CEO, and chairman of Bridgestone Americas, multi-billionaire, billion-dollar company. And Gary was their chief legal counsel. And just before he was picked to be the next CEO, he found out he had to have open heart surgery. And he also laughs that he never taken a business course before in his life. So unlike Mark, who's got all kinds of business experience, Gary's a lawyer, never had any business classes in his life, and now he's been picked to lead the largest tire company in the world, Bridgestone. So he'll have some interesting tips for everybody too. So that's next Friday. With that, Mark, any closing comment?
I love what you're doing. Keep helping people.
Thank you. And thanks again. We'll talk soon.
Bye now.
Goodbye, everybody. See you next